When you look at a charity, this is what I learned when I started to try to be responsible with my money. You look at people as an investment. What's the best way to invest in people? But you need, if you're going to give away $500 million every single year, you better have somebody who really knows how to manage it. And you better have somebody who has a big, big heart. Who is the person to head up your charitable arm, Mr. Soros? Well, he just found he's just the founder of SDS, the radical student group from the 1960s. You remember the days of rage riots? Yeah. And the spin-off group, the Weather Underground. Yeah. Just the guy who started this stuff, that's who heads the charitable arm. It's almost like subversive activities are kind of fun to Mr. Soros under the cover of humanitarian aid. So OSI spreads the money all over the country. But I'm sure the head of OSI, he's probably changed. One of the things that OSI funded was the shadow conventions in 2000. It funneled 1/3 of the shadow convention, who was hosted here. I mean, unless you were an avid, C-SPAN watcher, you probably don't remember them. But it was an attempt to, as they put it, focus on the issues that the parties just won't touch. Issues like campaign finance reform. Wait a minute. Last night, campaign finance reform. Now, that's a good humanitarian thing, isn't it? Seriously, that's going to feed a lot of children. Campaign finance reform. Remember we said that he spent over $100 million to get campaign finance reform. And what happened? Oh, yeah, I remember. It led to the boom in 501c3s, like MoveOn.org or Media Matters or any of the other things that he seems to fund. They can take in as much money as they want. And now all of those political organizations are controlled by George Soros. But remember, it's humanitarian. One of the organizers of the Shadow Convention was Arianna Huffington, which is now getting the Huffington Post money from George Soros to be able to hire reporters. Isn't that great? She was introducing here in 2000 at the Shadow Convention. She was introducing somebody else, another guest speaker, another co-organizer of the event. Watch.
We're now moving to the second issue of the Shadow Convention, the persistence of poverty in the middle of our prosperity. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome one of our conveners, the Reverend Jim Wallis, the head of the Call to Renewal, a new coalition of churches to fight poverty, and the editor of Sojourners magazine. Oh. He's also been a mentor and an inspiration to me. So get ready to be inspired. Jim Wallis.
Praise Jesus. Jim Wallis. Sojourners. Faith, politics, culture. That's right. Sojourners, didn't he get a bunch of money recently to help boycott me? That's right. I remember him now. And Sojourners, another group funded by OSI. George Soros, an atheist, dumping a whole bunch of money into a Christian organization. Well, that almost doesn't make sense. Oh, but it's humanitarian. Kind of makes you question the motives, though, doesn't it? Of course, it doesn't take long to see that his attraction to Jim Wallis is because he's a big government progressive. The solution is not with the people and the churches. It is get everybody into the government. He's infiltrating the churches. You see how this works? I know. I'm sorry, Mr. Soros. It's just humanitarian aid. Step number 2 is to control the airwaves. Has George Soros done this at all? Well, Open Society, it's very innocent here. And it's pure as the driven snow. Recently donated $1.8 million so that NPR could hire new journalists. Do we have the NPR thing? Yeah, they just $1.8 million so they could hire 100 journalists. And then Soros wrote a $100 million check to Media Matters to go along with, $1 million to go along with NPR, which was great. Their stated goal, by the way, what got him to write that was they were going to get me off the air and then destroy Fox. Isn't that great? By the way, he gave that $1 million and all that money after we were threatened. We were given a gift by Mr. Soros, and they realized that I wouldn't shut up. I wouldn't stop. And so then he decided, well, I guess I'm going to have to destroy him another way. $1 million also to the TeaPartyTracker.org. TeaPartyTracker.org. This is a website that they developed with the NAACP's media staff. It's supposed to expose the intolerant element of the Tea Party. Then the NAACP takes its content and collaborates with Think Progress, another Soros-funded group, along with Media Matters, and there you go. The next 3 steps? Next. We're talking about the plan for control that George Soros uses to take control of governments. The first one was form a shadow government using humanitarian aid as a cover. In George Soros's words, subversive activities. By the way, here's Sojourners. Here's a letter a friend of mine gave me today. This is me on the cover. Glenn Beck doesn't like us. We must be doing something right. It's a fundraising letter for this guy. Number 2, control the airwaves. Is he doing that? Yes. Number 3, destabilize the state and weaken the government and build an anti-government sentiment. Okay, so is he doing this? Well, again, we go back to his organization, his humanitarian organization, heavily funds the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation, $4.2 million. They're the ones that funded the anti-capitalist story of stuff indoctrination videos that we have told you that helps kids resent the government that supports a free market system. Tides itself takes some of its money and then sends it on to places like the Apollo Alliance, the home of Van Jones. They're the ones that also crafted the stimulus bill, you know, for the little guy, like Andy Stern. I think we all know how everyone feels about the stimulus bill. Also, OSI decides that they're going to fund a place called the Center for American Progress. You know that one. That's a progressive think tank that churn out big government ideas and who get many of their ideas from another group OSI funds, the IPS. This is the Institute for Policy Studies. You know what they've just come out with? This is great. They've just come out with a couple of things. First, President Obama needs to bypass Congress and issue more executive orders now that the election is over. And they've come out with this exciting new report that says, quote, outside pressure, inside strategy. Wow, that sounds familiar. Inside strategy, outside pressure. It's almost like bottom up, top down. What am I remembering here? Oh yeah, I remember Czechoslovakia. Top to bottom, bottom to top, inside out. Remind me of that, along with George Soros and Van Jones in just a few minutes. I'll show you something that will blow your mind. Step 4. Step 4 is provoke an election crisis. Well, that, of course, they haven't done anything like that. You know, where you lose confidence in the vote? No, no, no. Of course not. Of course, you have OSI funding Acorn. This is a group that's willing to sell, you know, human sex slave traffickers and give them a tax break. Soros also created this, SOS, the Secretary of State Project. This is a group that is specifically designed to groom and elect Secretary of States around the nation because they're the ones who have to certify election results. How do you think, what's his name from Minnesota got in last time? Remember all that? Remember Al Franken is, yeah, who's this project? Isn't that weird? They're the ones that call the shots. And Soros has pumped millions of dollars into voting-related groups, some of them legitimate, some get caught doing illegal things, some are kind of a little shady. I like this one myself, One America Votes. They get money from the Tides. Remember, Soros funds that group. They sent illegal immigrants door to door in Washington State just before this last election to tell people that they were illegal, but you should get out and vote. There's George Soros for you. And then step number 5, take power. Take power. This one is kind of hand in hand with staged demonstrations. This one's about to come. We've already seen the beginnings of it. The One Nation rally. We saw this. This is the labor union rally in D.C. as a response to 828, a project of the Tides Center, a.k.a. George Soros Group. OSI also donated to the Ruckus Society. They're a radical environmental justice group known for their aggressive tactics. Remember, that was the guy I told you about last night? It was causing all the riots in Seattle. Then OSI has donated to several groups who are trying to get me off the air. You have Faith in Public Life. That's funded by OSI. They're calling for my head. You have Sojourners, of course, they're calling for my head. You have Media Matters, all of them out of the pocket of George Soros. Mark my words, and I believe I said that for the last 2 years on inflation. As I told you, massive inflation will come, and you're beginning to see it now. Staged demonstrations and riots in the streets, you will see them here. What you're seeing today in the UK, this is students demonstrating in the streets. That's a demonstration, by the way. They will come here too. Because what are they rioting about? That they are cutting services at schools and raising tuitions. Really? Well, they will come, and they will be orchestrated, funded, or they will be exploited by Soros-like groups. If you're watching this show, and George Soros is the puppet master, so I'm sure he's having somebody else watch it, what happens? What happens to all of these groups? What happens to all of these groups? This man is playing God. He thinks he's God. God created the earth in 6 days and then rested on the seventh. Well, George Soros has created all of these things. And believe me, it's not just, in fact, here. Do you have this? Yeah, come here, Aaron. Come here. You stand over here. Stand. Lovely and talented Aaron. These are the Open Society. These are just the things that he has donated to. I just want to show you, because we don't have a lot of time. So I just wanted to show you the list. These are the list of the organizations that are involved, you know, in these 5 steps. And we wrote it out for you. But I just wanted to show you that it's no big deal. It's not like you're overpowered or anything like this. There's more. This is less than half of them. But other than that, there's nothing to see here. Just move on with your lives. Nothing to see here, folks.